Hey guys, it's Aman
And Christina
from Our Rich Journey. Today we are talking about estate planning. Now, I know a lot of you don't want to have this conversation. You might even think estate planning doesn't apply to you because you're not uber wealthy. But this is something we need to talk about because everyone should have an estate plan. No matter what your financial situation is, if you are over the age of 18 and you own a pencil or you own anything at all, you should have an estate plan. Because without an estate plan, everything that you work for, no matter what it is, could be lost in a blink of an eye because you don't have this plan in place. We talk a lot about financial independence, about making money, saving money, investing money. Well, if you want to keep that money and if you want to pass that money on for generations to come, you will need to have this conversation about estate planning. And so that's what we're going to talk about on this video. We are going to talk to you guys about the reasons why you need one and the top 7 mistakes people make when developing an estate plan of their own.
So an estate plan is more than just managing what will happen to your money if something happens to you. A lot of people associate estate planning with wills or trusts, but there's so much more encompassed with estate planning. With estate planning, if something happens to you, if you get sick, if you're in an accident, you can't make decisions on your own, if you die, your estate plan can cover everything that happens in terms of your wealth, your kids' inheritance, even who takes care of your kids. It's all encompassed in this type of plan. So an estate plan includes provisions for how people can access or control your money if you should become incapacitated or if you pass away. So there are many different documents included in an estate plan, and they include things like a will or a trust, a durable power of attorney, beneficiary designations, a letter of intent, a healthcare power of attorney, and a guardianship designation.
So without an estate plan, your life, your assets are just floating around in disorganization. And should something happen to you and you don't have an estate plan, you leave the decision making up to someone else that may not be looking out for your best interest, or someone that is not going to leave the legacy that you desired before you passed away.
So there are definitely people that may be managing your assets that don't have your best interests in mind, but there are also good intentioned people that want to have your best interests in mind, but don't necessarily know what that would be because you don't have an estate plan. So an estate plan lays everything out so you make your intent clear to everyone.
Now, earlier I said anyone that is 18 or up should have an estate plan. And the reason is at that age, you start to accumulate assets. And so if you have a bank account, if you have a 401k, if you have any type of assets, a car, a house, the decisions may need to be made if you are not able to make those decisions. And your estate plan lays that out. The other really big thing about having an estate plan is should something happen to you and you are incapacitated, the estate plan gives clear directions on how your health care should be handled.
So now that we've established that anyone 18 or older should really have an estate plan, let's talk about the top 7 mistakes people make with their estate plans. And the first one is assuming that you have to be rich in order to have an estate plan. That is absolutely not the case.
Now, I know we all know someone who knows someone that knew someone that was fighting over the assets of a loved one that had passed away. And more than likely, that person that passed away wasn't very wealthy. They were just a regular person. But they didn't have an estate plan to say, this person gets my house, this person gets my car, this person gets my autographed Michael Jordan jersey. Those people did not have estate plans, and that's why those people are fighting. So whether you have a lot or whether you have a little, having it in an estate plan and guiding where those things should go is very important. And it doesn't have to be about money. It could be about heirlooms. It could be about things that are sacred to family members, and you want to make sure that those family members get them. The second mistake people are making is assuming that estate plans are for what happens when you die. The fact is, so many of us will actually be incapacitated before we pass away. Something like 80% of us are not able to make our decisions before we pass away. And so having an estate plan in place lets people know how you want to be cared for, or how you want your family members to be cared for, or how your bills should be paid. once you reach a point of incapacitation. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to have this conversation. I know I came from a household that it seemed like when you talked about these things were going to happen faster. But that's not the case. If you prepare yourself now for these things, when they eventually come, because this is the inevitable, you will know what to do so that as a family, you can get through it.
The third mistake is waiting for someone to get sick or to pass away to try and establish an estate plan. It is too late by then. And this happens a lot of times with people when they're dealing with their parents. Maybe their parent becomes very sick and can't make decisions for themselves anymore. And then at that point, the child wants to go in and try and develop an estate plan for that parent. It is too late at that point. And there are worst case scenarios where adult children try and go in and develop an estate plan for their parent after they've passed away. Do not put off developing an estate plan. Take care of that right now.
The next mistake people make are thinking that if you are single, you do not need an estate plan. This could not be further from the truth, because it is single people that I think personally need estate plans more than anyone else. Because if you are on your own, by yourself, you really need to have a plan in place that lets people know what should happen if catastrophe should hit. How should you be cared for? What should happen to your assets? You do not want somebody else making those decisions for you because you did not have an estate plan in place. The next mistake has to do with the married couples out there. Now, you may assume that because you and your partner live together, maybe you own property together, maybe have a couple of accounts together, that all of their assets, you have an entitlement to those assets. Well, that is not necessarily the case. You see, if you are not listed on those assets and something should happen to your spouse or your partner, then you may not be entitled to those assets. You should not always assume that a marriage or a partnership entitles you to those things. In fact, we have experience with this ourselves. For a very long time, my little brother was listed on my 401k as a beneficiary. And it wasn't until I think a year after we were married that I actually changed it over to Christina's name. Oh, he would have got over on this if he would have stayed on that. But the reality is you have to check on these things. Maybe you established an account years and years ago and you listed your brother, your sister, or your parents, but did not list your spouse. If you don't make that change, your spouse may not be entitled to that money.
So the point here is that when you develop an estate plan, you're going to be looking at all of your assets and you're going to make sure that everything is designated properly. So if you get married, if you have kids, if you get in a divorce, if things change, your estate plan will help you identify all of the different designations that you need to have tied to your assets. The next mistake is that a lot of people think that having a will is sufficient. That is just a small piece of an estate plan. You need so much more than just a will. One of the things about just having a will is that in many cases, it's not even effective until after you pass away. And on top of that, a judge needs to certify the validity of that will before it becomes effective.
And this is a big and, you will likely still have to go through probate, which is a very expensive process that could be riddled with people making disputes about what was left in the will. On the other hand, if you have an estate plan that is clear, comprehensive, and that is centered around a trust, well, things are a lot more easier than just having a will. And this brings us to the biggest mistake people make when it comes to estate planning, and it is not hiring an attorney to do the estate plan for you. Now, Christina and I, we are all about DIY. We love to talk about how you guys can learn to invest on your own. We DIY so many things, but when it comes to estate planning, that is something that we do not DIY. And Christina is even an attorney, and we will still not DIY it.
So that is a really important point to make, because even though I am an attorney, I am not an attorney that specializes in estate planning. So you definitely want to hire an attorney, but on top of that, you want to make sure that they specialize in estate planning. And they don't have to be these huge fees that are attached to this type of plan. You can find an affordable, specialized attorney that can handle your estate plan and have everything in order for you. Now, one thing to note, even though we say you should have an attorney involved in this process with you as you develop your estate plan, we made this video because we really wanted you to understand the importance of having an estate plan, understanding what it does, how it can help you, and also really understanding the types of questions that you might want to ask an attorney when you're working with that attorney to develop your estate plan. Now, if you are interested in learning even more about estate planning and wills and trusts and generational wealth, we actually have our 365 Days to FIRE program, where in a month of that program, we go through everything related to generational wealth and estate planning. And this is to help you develop your financial independence plan, which is the goal for the entire course. So if you're interested in learning more about our 365 Days to FIRE program, enrollment is open now. We will leave a link for that in the description below, or you can also just go to 365daystofire.com to learn more. So with this video, we hope we gave you some food for thought, things to think about, and really encourage you to get involved, take action, and develop your estate plan. But if you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.